Lesley, come on up. So Lesley Range-Stanton, the Chief Communications Officer, is going to present the initial academic calendar drafts. It's more fun than fun.
Okay. All right. Good evening to our trustees. Good evening. Thank you for letting me come back. Last time we were here, we did kind of a comprehensive report on where we are in the calendar planning. And today we actually have some drafts to look at. And so we've got like an A, B, and a C. And so we'll talk through that here this evening. Just a recap of from last time. You saw a slide that looked like this, but we've added the idea. We talked about the idea of increasing the instructional day by 5 minutes. And so the calendars that you have in front of you are a reflection of doing that. And that, again, the things that we looked at with looking at the flexibility of our instructional minutes, extending the day across all levels by 5 minutes, that without changing the campus workday start and end times, no impact on food service to the students during the day, and then making an adjustment perhaps in the afternoon to the transportation schedule. So the calendar drafts that you have in front of you, here is a reflection of that. You can see them in whole, but we're going to look at this slide, calendar features. And let's just look at each slide one at a time. So calendar A is a version, and we've had a lot of internal discussion, so that's why you see A4. We've played around with different things here, and we've talked to staff and to PTA and to students, to you guys last month. And so now we're internally on version 4, but this is the first one that we're presenting. So calendar A is the one that looks most like the current year's calendar. And this is even with the increased 5 minutes. Increasing by 5 minutes, we recouped 2 days of instruction that could now be used for staff, professional learning, staff development, professional learning communities. So that goes back to some teacher planning time. And so if you look at calendar A, we've got, let's see, a total of about 82 instructional days for the first semester, 91 for the second semester. We've got at least one staff day, I think, in each instructional period. It looks a little different at the winter break, but one of the questions that you guys had last time was, will we have some planning time every 6 weeks, I think, but we do have at least one planning day every grading period across all 3 calendars. Another question that you guys asked was about going to college visits on, what day of the week was best, and I did do a little research, and according to the College Board, Monday through Thursday, those are better days for college visits. Fridays are a little unpredictable at college campuses. And so if we have those yellow days is what we call them as we're planning the calendar, if we have those professional learning days on Mondays or even a holiday on a Monday, those are probably the better days for the students to go on those campus visits. So across the board, you can take a look at the differences. Calendar B is the kind of obligatory Monday start, and by having a Monday start, we were able to recoup some days, and you can see that gives a full week off for a fall break, where staff and students might be able to have that time, but you're extending your start day and you're ending on May 24th. And so there's some things in there that people have already expressed that they prefer or don't prefer, and a Monday start is not always favorable. And that's what we see on calendar B. But you can see the difference there where you have your student-teacher holidays on that first line. In the first grading period, you've got 6 days in calendar B. And then you move on over to calendar C, you've got 3 days, and what you have on calendar C is more of that mini fall break that we've talked about in the past. So you've got a couple of days off for students and staff, which would be Friday the 6th and Monday the 9th, and then a couple more days off for students where staff can have that time for professional learning. So you get several consecutive days break for our students, and then staff they'll have an opportunity to learn together and produce that mini fall break. Each of these versions has the 7th, November 7th, which would be the election day. Small election day next year compared to this year, but every other year, of course, the difference is, 6 to 8 campuses being used for election versus like 26 that we'll have next Tuesday. So being off on, or students not being in the building on those days makes it a little bit easier and kind of quells those concerns about safety with election day. And then calendar C, and then going back to calendar A, that has the more traditional time that we've had in the past few years for our winter break, starting on December 18th. Calendars B and C look more like what our surrounding districts are saying they are doing and have already adopted in a lot of cases, where that's going to start. It puts students coming back a little bit later. So that 22nd through the 5th is more in line with our surrounding districts. So those are some of the big differences. And then you can see that calendar C, the way that that's drafted, that is definitely the most, calendars B and C are a little more balanced across semesters. So just looking at those features, those are the biggest differences across the 3 calendars. And then we'll go into, that's it. So do you all have any questions about the drafts?
I have a quick question. In the second semester, we always have STAR testing and a lot of the AP tests and all of that. About how many days are you estimating? Because obviously, first semester has fewer days versus the second semester. How many days are we talking about allowing for that cushion?
I don't know exactly the number of testing days. Lisa, do you have an idea?
I don't know the exact number. They are spread out. It's like a 2-week period, but not every student tests on every day. Each semester, and you've got to think about semester exams. There are also EOC exams in first semester, so sometimes that balances out as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know? I was looking at the calendars, and when you were doing draft B with the October fall break, I think that has always been asked through the years, and that we consider bringing it back. And I think that this is a good time to consider bringing back the fall break in October.
I don't disagree with that. My only thing would be looking at draft A and just seeing the distribution of the staff days and what that would give them for, mid-semester reassessments and professional learning PLCs. And I think that'd be a better balance for the staff. If there's a way to have both, then I'd love that. But I think kind of balancing that out for the staff should be a priority.
Well, as a follow-up to that, I was sitting here wondering if we know what percentage of our staff have kids in the district that would require childcare on those days. Because with the fall break, it's a both student and teacher, and you're not putting an additional childcare burden on the staff that they've got to find coverage for their own kids for those 2 days in October, and would that be preferable?
Yes.
I mean,
So that's something that we can come
that's a
back
question
and
for-
find the percentage of staff who have students in the district. Or, staff, if they don't have students in this district, with students across, in school.
The midweek start date is, I think, so important. If we can give that, if there's one thing we can give to teachers, and I've only gotten feedback that they're very happy with that. If that's changed, then I'd want to know that. But that midweek start. The other thing I'm very curious about is in C, that extended, not extended, but the winter break extending into January, and if that is preferable to having the winter break starting earlier. it seems to me from a teacher standpoint, the spring semester is such a slog. And to be able to make it a smaller number, make it more balanced as far as numbers, it just make it a little bit easier to navigate.
Yes, and as you can see, this is, draft C4 and A4. So we did have some staff response early on from PLEC and from principals who saw versions of the calendar, and the C calendar kind of won out over as far as preference. So they did express a preference for that later.
Yeah, I would say with my teacher lens on, the C calendar is much more preferable
Right.
For that. But
And
again,
then
the point about the full week of fall break is certainly nice. It's just that it's really nice to have a break. The multiple breaks is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trade-off a few years back was taking the full week of full fall break out and instead giving a full week at Thanksgiving. And I hear the idea, Angela, your idea about bringing back the full week at fall break. But to me, if you look at it, you would have a full week in October, a full week in November, and then 2 full weeks in December. Within a very short period, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably like 8, 10 weeks. You're talking about having 4 of those off. That's a lot of time off that maybe there's more beneficial ways to move those days around. I would give you my 2 cents on the rest of these. I'm a huge proponent of the Wednesday start date, so that kind of negates B a little bit. I'm a huge proponent of balanced semester days, which is a negative mark on A. If there's, I guess the question I would have is, did you get real positive feedback on taking an extra day around Labor Day this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there was positive feedback for that.
I questioned that last year, when we first did that, because I thought, well, gosh, that's right. School's just started and you're taking an extra day. But I think the comment was the teachers need that day to gather themselves. And so it sounds like it's been a real positive, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
even in the feedback with principals and our PLEC group, some of the comments were surrounding, keeping some time off in there.
And did you get any feedback on the Friday before versus the Tuesday after?
I don't know if I have any. I don't have any notes about that I can recall right now, but I can look and see, and that's something that we can ask. So these versions of the calendar will go back this Friday to our leadership group, the bigger group, and we can definitely ask about that.
I think our students gave us some feedback.
The students did give
What
feedback.
they like?
They prefer to have the Friday and Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just professionally speaking, I think it's probably easier if people are going to travel that weekend to take the Friday before as opposed to the Tuesday after.
Okay. The students
But
did.
we're right in the middle of football season and bands and football teams and drill team, or are we able to do the schedule so we have a Thursday night football games?
Well, that's what the kids, and they weren't all here, but that was part of their discussion, and a lot of them are involved in extracurricular, and their preference was still Friday to Monday. I think part of it too is just travel, and having I think probably for parents too, having a Friday and a Monday versus having to go into the next week. That seemed to be the preference from a kid's perspective.
So I have a question about the winter break. If we go to a draft C4, we're kind of changing the way we've done it in the past. And so I wonder, have we talked to families, or did PTA give feedback on the way we're shifting it more into January?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think
we can send, now that we have solid drafts, we can send these around and get some feedback from our PTA council.
I will say
So-
this as far as feedback on that. The feedback is, our kids are coming back earlier. So if you look at A, the last day being December 15th, for our high schools and senior highs, they're actually taking exams, and so then they're in half days. So that's a whole, in a way, it's a little bit of a loss of instruction versus B and C where you push it back.
Yeah.
They're going a little bit later. So when you look at the weeks between Thanksgiving break and when exams would start, it's like a 2-week period. versus calendar B and C gives you 3 weeks between Thanksgiving break and exams.
Okay.
So it's almost, in a way, I think that was part of the preference. And also, as Lesley said, B and C align better with what our surrounding districts are doing.
And that was exciting to, across all the audiences, the parents, the staff, and students like the idea of aligning with
With
surrounding
other
districts.
districts? Okay, and then
Most of
this,
them did.
I would presume this aligns with Colin?
Yes. So Colin,
draft C.
spring break is what we really need to align with Colin, and so
Okay.
that does across all 3 calendars.
Okay, and I kind of agree with you. You would said, like, draft B, that starts on a Monday. I think that just rocks everybody's world, whether it's a brand-new kindergartner coming in and they've got to make a whole week on their first week, or the teachers. I mean, I think that we've all decided that a midweek start is better for everyone.
Yeah. Yes, and we know our students prefer the midweek start for sure.
Hey, Lesley, on October, on this draft C, October 6th is a holiday. So that's the, and then there's the mini fall break the week after that. I mean, and that first 6 weeks is 40 days, and the second, or the first 9 is 40 days, and the next one is 45 days. You could almost take that October 6th day and move it. That's a freebie that you could move somewhere else, even into the second semester if you wanted to. Because I don't know if, look, to Jerry's point, we do have a lot of activities on Fridays. And so to the extent you've got a student holiday on a Friday in the fall, well, that's a lot of students who are potentially impacted. I don't, if you move that down to the next week, to the 12th, then you might as well take the whole week off, right? So maybe take that day, you could move it to the next semester, to the second semester. You've extended your first semester to 86, you've reduced your second to 88. Yeah, April has a lot of time in there where you might be able to take it. I don't know. To me, that's a free day that you could work with if you needed to.
And that's a consideration. Another consideration, so we'll kind of workshop that with our other vetting groups as well. The April 29th Professional Learning Day on Calendar C, there might be potential. The only thing is you lose that planning day in that last semester, but I don't know if we need, in that last grading period, could be moved to the 8th, where staff still had, a planning day before the students came back, of January 8th, I mean. So that's one alternative that we were looking at as well. So that's a question that we would want to ask.
Well, maybe you
our
just
groups.
take that October 6th and put it on January 8th. And then you leave the 29th of April.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sort of, in saying that, I'm sort of surprised that that a lot of districts are going so far into January. I feel like, just as a working mom, there is more of a professional expectation for me to be back in the office like January 2nd or 3rd than there is before Christmas, when we're sort of winding down for the year. And I don't know if that's industry specific. But then going into the 8th, like, Nancy's panicking me a little bit in terms of, like, what am I going to do with my kids? It's like 8 days into the year. I'm actually supposed to be at a conference that week. And so I just, feeding back on that point, I would really like parent feedback on that, and to really understand the districts that have gone to that, why they've gone to that, and how that works. Because it just, as a mom of young kids, I like the A break better, but I'm happy to be outvoted. I mean, I just would like to know what the data
Get that
is.
feedback. Okay.
And the thing is that, a lot of families like Fridays off. So I actually like the October 6th where it is. So I don't know, but in my opinion, families do like Fridays off over a Monday.
That's true, but when you think about Friday football game and you've got the band and the drill team and the football team, that's a lot of shuffling extracurriculars. But, I mean, that's just one of the points I remember when I had kids in both activities. I didn't have a football player. Huh?
Kids have all the activities on the Friday. They're not getting a break.
Right.
I mean, it makes it a little bit, it's not an opportunity for a family to go anywhere. It has that. Now, having a Friday in the spring, if we could find a Friday, that might be another option. Because again, that spring is such a slog, that towards the end.
Well, you could push that, if we're doing that October 6th Friday, swap it with April 5th, which is a Friday. And then you get your Friday, and you get your relief in the spring.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that runs into the AP tests and the EOCs and all of the testing.
Right.
So Leslie, aside from PTA, are there alternative ways for parents to give input other than emailing trustees?
We can look at that and see if we have enough time to do a quick survey.
Okay.
So between now and we still can, we don't have to bring this back on the 15th for approval. We could push it into December if you all are comfortable with that. And that might allow a little more time for.
Because
survey.
you know what, I would like to know if parents do want that October break, for a whole week, because that would give parents the weather is good. That would give parents a good time to actually plan a trip
In October.
in October, the
So-
whole week.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say we did a survey was either last year or 2 years ago. Maybe can you share those results again with the board?
Yes. We can.
Because I think
Put
that
those
was one of the
together.
questions. Would you prefer a week at fall break, which everybody's like, full.
And
That's
the thing is that-
awesome.
Or the Thanksgiving.
But the mini fall break,
Yeah.
what we settled on, like you said, everybody astoundingly wanted the full week at Thanksgiving, so we gave them that and went to the mini fall break. And I think, like you said, in a span of 8 weeks, we've got half of them off, so maybe push some of that into the spring semester.
So for part of what we can do this week is go back to the other surveys. We have a summary of that and a lot of input, and see if that if we can pull something from there, from the different, and we have staff, students, and parents.
So we don't have all of the vetting groups listed. It was in Lesley's presentation 2 weeks ago. And so some of the vetting groups have had 1 or 2 or 3 opportunities. And so we'll take feedback from tonight, go back to the survey, do some additional tweaking, and we can either, if we're not ready for approval, we'll bring back what the rework is from the input for either a version 5 or tweaking, and then
Or XYZ.
or XYZ. But this is really good feedback because it keeps back to the guiding principles. Some of those guiding principles were established from the surveys. I think it was the year before, perhaps, that it wasn't last year, but I think it was the year before, where we received input and we could go back out to survey as well.
Well, I'll admit I wasn't very prepared for this particular tonight because I didn't have like the PDFs. I couldn't read these because it was in one slide. And so before we discuss this again, can we get the actual PDFs, whatever we're going to discuss, just get those in advance so we can dive into it a little deeper and be more prepared?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that, one thing I want to know is if we have a lot of testing in April and May, and that's the reason why we need those instructional days. Because the thing is that you got the AP exams, in May, and the teachers have to prepare their students for those AP exams in April. So I wonder if maybe the reason why we have all those instructional days in April, because we need them for our exams in May.
Yeah, so as these were developed, not only did we use the testing dates or calendar from TEA, but also from College Board, and we took that into account. And that's the thing, as far as, is it 10 days, or is it 15, or is it 12? It really is different for every single grade level, because our high school and senior high students, they may have less state testing, but they're going to have higher AP testing dates, and then our primary students have less, and then the kids 3rd through 8th. I mean, there's a whole list of different testing requirements and obligations. So, but that was taken into account in the development of all 3 calendars.
All right. Thanks, Lesley.
Thank you.